So then you got your alternate cycles, right?
Yep.
1, 2, and 3. Your bead adjustment, extend and offset. That's just your beads for the start and the stop of the beads if you need to lengthen it out. Quick setup, so your line solids. So this is more for a yellow. If you're coming out of a skip and you're going into like a solid skip or a double solid, you can do your line solids. And this kind of plays around with your alignment back here. Set up extras alignment. This just kind of lays it out for you. So after your last skip, it's like 3 feet before your start, you could flip both of these to solid. And then on the next start of the skip, it would start doing a double solid, and it would just line them up. But your skip distance would be the same, the gap. It would be consistent with what you're doing previously. It just kind of delays it. So as soon as you flip this in the start, they should delay until it hits that next cycle, and then it will maintain that solid line. Or if you're just in, like, I mean, realistically, you just be in skip and you want to do a solid skip, you just last 3 feet of your cycle, you'd flip that to solid. It would maintain that skip cycle, but then it would just do a solid line next to the other one. But it would line up the starts.
That's nice.
Same with the ends. So the last 3 feet, or 3 feet before the last skip, you could shut solid off. It would maintain that solid line until the end of your skip, and then would shut it off even. So that's your alignment on quick setup, on or off. Your mode, that's just your test modes if you have delays or offsets. You guys don't have delays or offsets, so that's something you don't really need to mess with. Auto cycle is for your advance and retract. So when auto cycle is on, if you hit advance, it's changing the whole cycle. If auto cycle is off, it only adjusts for one skip, and then it goes back to its previous cycle. Datum point is just a reference point, so if you have a laser, you know, a laser is X amount of feet out in front of the gun, you'd measure that distance, go back here to setup, into system, and then datum.
Wait, these guns have lasers?
Set up our distance between your reference point and the gun to X amount of inches. And we go back here to quick setup. We can turn our datum point on. So then we turn the gun on, truck will travel X amount of feet before the gun turns on. Same thing when it shuts off. You shut the start stop switch off, truck will travel X amount of feet, and then the gun will shut off if datum point is on. If it's off, it's on and off whenever you hit the start switch. Your start on index, it's either going to do the paint first, or if you're tying into a previous skip pattern, it's going to do the gap and then the skip. Mid spot is for doing reflective markers between skips. So if we put odd, it will do every other skip. Same thing with even, it'll do every other skip, or if you do both. Between the middle of every skip, it'll put a little blob, so then when your guys come back with markers, they know where to put them. More common on paint trucks than thermal trucks, but profile is just a different gun setup for doing audible lines.
Yep.
Speed alarm, you can set your speed alarm to, so if it's on, we go back to the setup, speed range, set our max speed. Oh, it's way high. So like we can set this 7 mile an hour. So if you go over 7 mile an hour, the box will beep at you. And if we set this to 3, it will beep at you if you go below 3 miles an hour.
That's awesome.
So that's your speed
It's a little more
alarm.
fancy than what we're used to.
Auto test mode. If auto test mode is on when the truck is stopped, it will automatically go into test mode. So if you have any delays, offsets, it will shut those delays and offsets off so the guns can open without moving the truck if you're just trying to pop it. And it shows that mid spot in there too, if that's on. So auto test mode on. You guys don't have any offsets or delays, so you don't need it on. Then your material pump swap. So if you're doing dedicated white on the yellow side, you come in here, go to swap. It's gonna ask you to turn all your knobs down to 0. Hit OK, and then it's swapped. So then you're controlling the white pump with the yellow side. And when you're doing that, both yellow and white pump have to be on. If you don't have your yellow pump on, your extrude knob will work, but the single and dual won't do anything. It will just always stay in extrude. So, that's just for dedicated white. Your counters, like your left gun footage, your right gun, your left trip, right trip, your totals overall. If you go to options, you can clear it and then you can print it. There's a printer in the cab. You can print it, we can make sure it prints. Once we make sure it prints, then we can clear our counters. From there we go in our setup. This is just overall setup of the whole truck. Like we've gone through datum, speed alarm, or speed range. You can go to gun setup. You set your colors. These are all preset. You don't have to mess with it right now. These are your gun widths. So if we set like we're on 4-inch all the way around right now, but if we were to run 6-inch on the edge line, we could put this to 6-inch. And realistically, all that's going to do is with your counters, it's just going to put a little number 6 next to your right gun 1. And so when you print your stuff off, it will tell you edge line gun 1 is 6-inch. You kind of gotta be careful with that, because if we crank this up to 8, anything.
How are they working on it? I call him here to load the truck.
Anything with 8 inches or more is gonna automatically trigger your dual. So if your if you have one gun set at 8 inches, as soon as you turn it on, it's not gonna go to single. You're gonna be using your dual knob to adjust your pump speed. And that's all based off of, if you go in setup, extras, come down in here to pump boost. So this is all set at the 8-inch. Pump boost is when you have one or more guns turned on and it adds up to 8 inches or more, it's automatically gonna go in the dual. So like for example, if we turn this up to 10, and we set this gun to 10, dual will kick in. If we set it anything below 10, it's going to be on your single knob. Or if we're using yellow side, we got gun 1 set up at 4-inch, we got gun 2 set up at 4-inch. It's still going to make you do single if this is set at 10. So if you set your yellow guns up to 6-inch, on gun 1 and gun 2, that adds up to 12. That's above 10. So then that's when your dual will kick in if you have 1 and 2 on. For doing calibration, we're gonna go back to setup. Come down here. We're gonna scroll over until we find calibrations. Go down the distance. And so then we'd mark out 1,000 foot.
Yeah.
Start your calibration. It kind of walks you through it. You line up with the line. You hit your start switch. Guns don't have to be on. Your start switch has to be on. You travel 1,000 foot or more. You get to your end mark. You stop, you hit this stop, you hit finish calibration, and it's going to tell you, okay, we drove 998 feet. And then it's going to give you the option to adjust it, and you can go in there and say, no, we drove 1,000 foot. So then you put 1,000 foot in there, you hit finish, and it saves your new calibration number. So that's in setup and calibration, and then distance. Other than that, switches, you got your rock hop for doing profile, your beads, tandem front and rear. You guys are only on single drop, and so this will have to be in rear for your guns to operate. Air is for your air blowers on your carts, cart lifts. Gun riser is for raising and lower the guns. Beads for activating your bead guns. Material is for activating your material guns. If any of these are active, you hit start, it will turn your gun on. Shut it off, it'll shut the gun off. Advance and retract, that's if you're doing skip cycles. So if your skip cycle's off by just a smidge, we can advance it forward to line it back up, or we can retract it back to bring it back into the line. Withhold, if you're doing, every state's a little bit different on what they apply to bridges, but if you're doing a bridge deck that requires epoxy or paint, we come up to the bridge, the start of the bridge, we can hit withhold, we can keep driving. When we get to the other side of the bridge, we can hit shut withhold off, and all that's doing is it's retaining its cycle. And so when they do come back in with epoxy or paint or tape or whatever you put on your bridge decks, they can line up that cycle so it's consistent with what you had on the road previously. Pump RPM are shown here. So you got your yellow side, and then you got your white side. You got your truck speed. What else we got here? I think that was everything. But you kind of gotta be careful, like I mentioned, with that mid spot, because sometimes it will randomly turn on. I haven't figured out when or why it turns on, but sometimes if you go between patterns, I wonder if it's this. Oh yeah, okay, so I see. So I think if we just turn this to none on all the patterns, it will. So if you have like pattern 3 set, you come back here, go to your mid spot, it turns on your mid spot, because that's what we had it on, just kind of playing around with it. But if you go to pattern 2, it'll shut it off. So if we go back to pattern 3, we can come back here, turn it to none. And so it should always be none. Okay, that must be what it is. So I don't think you should have a problem with it, but if you start getting those blobs between your skips, it's going to be that mid spot.
Okay.
You catch all that?
I catch the majority of it.